Well, Brian, thank you so much for being with us today. It's a pleasure to have a GFA member and a longtime timberland owner as the Republican candidate for the next governor of Georgia. So we are thrilled to have you.
Well, I'm honored to be with you, excited to be a member, and really appreciate what you guys do. So thanks for having me with you today.
Absolutely. Since 1907, GFA has been the voice of forestry in this state. And we've really done that by being focused on three core principles. Number one, respect for private property rights. Number two, sensible taxes and regulations. And number three, healthy markets. So we're going to ask you a few questions today that kind of zero in on that. But first of all, I think it'd be really wonderful for a lot of our members to know why you own timberland and what's your favorite aspect of owning timberland.
Oh boy, there are a lot of aspects of me owning timberland. You know, we've kind of bought and sold several pieces of property that have been timberland related. The farm we have now is small, about 400 acres, but we got a pretty good stand of timber on there that we've been managing, gosh, for over a decade now. Beautiful place, you know, so it's a working farm in a lot of ways, but our families enjoy it. We're helping, we have a mile of river frontage on the Broad River, so we're helping be good stewards of the environment and water quality and everything else by maintaining our property properly. You know, we burn a fair amount out there, so we understand how good that is for the, you know, understory of the forest, for wildlife, and just for a timber farm in general. And I know we've fought battles over the years of people not understanding that, so I have firsthand knowledge of that and appreciation from an aesthetic standpoint, but also controlling forest fires and other things. So, but we like to hunt and we like to fish and we like to go out there and enjoy that property. So it's been great for our kids as they've grown up. So it's just been a great opportunity. I'm very strong, as you know, and a lot of your members know. I've been pro-forestry and pro-agriculture for a very long time, and I think that's something as I move forward to winning this governor's race and being in the seat that I can help promote to help Georgia's economy. As you know, we're the #1 forestry state in the country. We got a huge ag economy, and nobody knows that better than myself, and I'll be an advocate for that.
Fantastic. So as we think about being #1, we're very privileged right now that there have been 9 announcements of either new sawmills being built in Georgia or expansion of existing mills. We haven't seen that type of investment in Georgia's forest sector in a long time. The last time we had a new sawmill in Georgia was in the late 80s. And so in the last 6 months to have that many announcements on top of about 30 announcements across nine southern states, but you know, Georgia getting a third of the total announcements and a lot of investment, that's a really exciting time for us. So tell us a little bit about your perspectives on that.
Oh man, it's fantastic. I have definitely, you know, being from Athens, our farm's in Madison County, so we're in northwest Georgia. I have been watching that very closely, and some of the economic development announcements that have come out with the sawmills is providing some markets that are a little bit closer to us. I mean, that's one of the problems that we've had as we look to thin the next time, is we just don't have a whole lot of markets around Athens anymore. If we do, they're very limited. So I understand that that's a big need for our state in the future, to continue that, to help promote that, to strengthen rural Georgia, to open up markets for forest landowners, and I know that firsthand through our farm.
So while we talk about rural Georgia and rural America, that's been a huge focus, both here from elected officials in Georgia as well as nationwide, from the president on through to our state senators and U.S. representatives in Congress. Tell us a little bit about your perspectives on how we can really continue to strengthen the rural economy.
Well, it's been a big initiative of mine, certainly in the governor's race, but I was actually talking about that a year before I actually decided to pull the trigger and get in the governor's race, because I know it firsthand for a lot of reasons. Number one, you know, I'm a part owner in our timber farm. I've seen it, being in the legislature, being on the ag committee, working with GFA and other good business folks and sawmills and foresters and everyone else around the state. I've known it for a very long time, how important rural Georgia is. I'm doing business there myself, not just with our timber farm, but I've been involved in rural manufacturing that wasn't agriculture related, but related to another business entity I have, our stone business, that we've owned for, gosh, I think over 20 years now. So I know how important it is to strengthen rural Georgia, but also as Secretary of State, we work with every county in the state, Andres, as you know, all 159 of them. I've been to every single one of them, and I didn't just do a fly in, fly out, or a drive in, you know, drive through, if you will, You know, I have visited with business owners. I've spoken with the chamber. I've sat down with the paper, with the elected leaders. You know, obviously visiting the elections office and the voter registrars that we're working with. But I've seen firsthand and asked, you know, what drives the economy? What's going on here? What are the opportunities? What are the problems that we're facing? You know, I've stayed in people's homes where they don't have access to high-speed internet and their kids can't get on there to do their homework at night. You know, I know rural health care is an issue. You know, having jobs. I've sat down in people that have manufacturing facilities related to forestry and agriculture. One of the biggest issues they got is their workforce is aging out. Their young people are moving off for better opportunities, or they're not coming home after college or their educational career is over. So we've got to have a governor that's focused on that. That's why early on in my campaign, I've developed a detailed plan that's on our website, kempforgovernor.com, to strengthen rural Georgia. And it talks about a lot of these things, you know, running high-speed internet or getting the ability for the private sector to do that. Having a economic development task force in the Department of Economic Development that will focus on strengthening rural Georgia, that will work with local leaders, local business folks like sawmills and forestry owners to figure out, you know, how do we move the needle? But we got to have local communities that want to be involved in that and have skin in the game and be willing to work with the state to do that. And certainly the legislature has been focused on that. Speaker Ralston's been focused on that. So I'm looking forward to being the governor where I can work with them and with the private sector and the economic developers all across the state to move that needle.
Excellent. So one of the things that, as you know, a timberland owner, we have to pay taxes every year on our timberland, and we're very fortunate to have CUVA and FLIPA, and then hopefully after November we'll also have a new class of property called the timberland property that'll be give landowners a new option. But as we look at those programs, we know that they've been more Band-Aids than anything for us, and that a lot of our tax system in Georgia is still kind of based off of you know, taxing the land to fund our local governments. And that works, you know, 150 years ago, but today we have a very different economy that's more service-oriented, more sales-oriented on merchandise and things of that nature. Is there any room in your vision for comprehensive tax reform that might modernize how we tax the land in this state and still take care of making sure that we're funding our schools and our local government the way they need to be?
Well, I know that's you know, having gone to all these 159 counties, I certainly understand that that's a big issue for the landowners. I'm one of them. But also understand and have had my ear bent by a lot of county commissioners, especially in rural Georgia, that are fighting to really provide the services that they need to, you know, trying to keep the rural hospitals open. But we are absolutely going to have comprehensive tax reform under a Kemp administration. You know, I have been running on putting a spending cap in place so we budget conservatively. We look at ways that we can use technology to reduce government spending, to make state government more efficient, to cut out things that we don't need to do, which will create more revenue to work with, where we can have comprehensive tax reform that is broad-based. What I want to do is have broad-based tax reform that's fair for all Georgians. I've staked my campaign on putting Georgians first ahead of the special interest. And those hard-working forest owners and landowners across our state, they're certainly working Georgians like I am. And they're going to have a seat at the table when we do that. So we'll have all options out there and see how we can move forward.
Excellent. So Georgia, as you've already mentioned, #1 forestry state in the nation. And that's really based on having more privately held commercial timberland than any other state in this country. What are your thoughts on keeping that land in private hands and keeping our economy thriving so that we can continue to be the #1 forestry state in the nation?
Well, I'm certainly a private sector guy. I've been a small business guy for over 30 years. That includes today. You know, I've been fighting that battle for a very long time through lean years and good years. So I understand how important it is to have a vibrant, free market. That is where I'm always leaning when it comes to the private sector versus government. So I think that'll give your members a good perspective of how I will deal with those type issues in the future. But we've got to continue to have, you know, the private sector owning timberland in our state. I know there's obviously state lands that we hold, but I think we have to be very cautious about how much of that we're doing where we're doing it and that we're doing it in a way that's not hurting, private sector industry.
Sure. So one surprise question for you. What's your favorite thing about being a GFA member?
Oh, well, I think just having the advocacy that you guys do for us, the opportunities to network with the members. I've just met so many good people through GFA, including people that are supporting the industry, like at our university system. Part of my Strengthening Rural Georgia plan, I want to make South Campus at UGA #1 in the country, whether it's forestry or agriculture, because I know how that land grant institution and the mission that it has can support the industry to develop new products, new uses for forestry products. I was reading something the other day about different celluloses that are being used in new products, and we need to continue to be a leader in the country for that. So I appreciate the resources that come out of GFA, the advocacy obviously at the Capitol, but just how you tie the whole industry together speaking in one voice.
Thank you for being a member. Thank you for this time today. We have a special tie for you. This is a forestry tie. We don't give these to anybody. You have to earn these, and we certainly think as one of our most prominent members, you absolutely earned it. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I will wear that with pride.
Yes,
Looking
sir.
forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.